So it's back here. My name is Henry, and I'm talking about the RV that we have, the SB1340 from National RV. It's a 2000 model, and this is the driving area that we have in this vehicle. I've added quite a few features to it. First, I'll give you an overview of these features, and then I'll do them a little more up close. So first off, the basic features. Along the left side here we have the jacking system. There's a leveling bubble coupled with this leveling bubble here and the one there that we use to establish level. The switch panels that you see here for the most part are original. The challenge with this particular switch panel is that at nighttime when you put the headlights on, this entire panel here and this one here does not light up, so you can't see where the switches are located. The red switches do light up though when they're engaged, but you can't find them in the dark. However, I've added a feature that allows for that. We have here the backup camera. We can also turn it on while we're driving, and that allows us to see the state of the trailer or the Jeep, whatever we're towing behind us. It's an automatic transmission 4-speed. It's a Ford V10 6.8 liter engine. It's, for the most part, it's worked really well. It's a 4R100 transmission, and the back of the transmission was rebuilt in 2017. Now, the previous owner added the CB radio here, at least one of the previous owners did anyway, and they also added this light here that was attached to the 12 volt that you can pull down, turn on, and it lights up your panel. But it's pretty bright, and you certainly don't want to leave it on when you're driving. So again, some of the features I've added to this to make it more interesting to drive and to get more information while you're driving, because you know, this is a fairly substantial investment and you want to know things before they fail. So first, these two switch panels here are from the USB, or there's the 12 volt switching system. So we've got 7 different implements here. The one panel's engaged from the other one. And there we put a plug at the back here where we get the source power for this that comes from the house batteries. To deal with the panel lighting, there was a really neat implement that came from Canadian Tire a few years ago, in which you have a USB, or sorry, my goodness, a 12 volt plug-in here with a switch on it right there. And then you have these little mini lights. In this case, there's 4 of them with very fine wire attached. So when you turn them on, you get the blue, a blue glow from each of them. So I bought 3 sets of these, and I put them facing the indicators here, so I can see the names of the switches and so forth, and there's enough glow to see what's going on. It works extremely well, and I couldn't be more pleased with how that developed. I also have an older GPS here from about 15, maybe even 20 years ago, maybe more actually, that can give me display. There's no real map on it, but it gives me indication of heading and speed and so forth if I want to, and it glows in the dark. This is a 10-year-old TomTom GPS, which is fairly effective and works not too badly. Right now in the van I'm also using Google Maps a great deal, and I really enjoy it. I know there are RV specific GPSs out there and all the rest, but I'm not sure that I'm going in places sufficiently remote right now to justify that. With this big unit towing a Jeep, we're pretty much interstate, big highway kind of drivers until we get to the campground, and then we detach. Then we can run around in the smaller vehicle when the restrictions aren't quite as concerned. This is a small unit here that keeps an eye on the battery, gives me temperatures. There's a sensor on the outside of the vehicle so I know what my temperature is. I've put a small checklist here with my labeler to remind me of some basic things I forget before I start the engine, are nuisance things in the most cases, so that I don't make a mistake when or drive away with issues. This particular device, which I'll show you up more close, and there's another one I attach here as well. These are from the OBD2 sensor from the engine, and give myself lots of fuel use and other engine parameters off, including cylinder head temperatures and transmission fluid temperatures, as well as fuel performance and so on. Just as a reference, this particular vehicle gets, generally speaking, about 3.3 to 3.4 kilometers per liter. So that's approximately, depending on the factors of the trip, about 10 to 10.5 imperial miles per gallon. or about 8.5-ish American gallons or miles per gallon, US gallon, which is better than most. I drive this vehicle very conservatively. We generally don't go much more than 52 to 55 miles an hour on the interstate, or approximately 92 kilometers an hour here in Canada. I'm very careful driving up hills, and we trade speed for power and try to keep the RPM in the horsepower curve of the engine as best we can. It seems to work pretty well. I have over here installed a vacuum gauge, and this lights up when we're driving, give me a sense of, it gives me a little more assistance on how to use the gas pedal properly. We redid the radio. It failed when we got it. It had only cassettes in it, no discs. So I bought a new radio and had that installed, and it works great. We have the 4 speakers in this unit, and we can also have the front input here, so when we have our DVD and so forth, we can run the the computer, pardon me, we can run the sound through the stereo system of the RV. So that works really nicely. I suppose if I could also do that with the televisions too. I just haven't bothered. The speakers otherwise are pretty good. This panel here is not an instrumented panel. It is a memory panel reminding me of different things to check before we start. Where the awnings are in, have we walked around the vehicle verifying perimeter, is the feed water back in, a cable television, what's going on at the back with the mounts and the trailers and so forth, is the LP ISO valve closed, which I'll talk about in a minute, is the 120 volt umbilical cord stowed properly, the black water sump, is it locked off and the hose stowed, is the porch light off, is the slide in, are the whole lights off, is the step in, the feed water pump, is it off, is the cabin environmental settings adequate, is the water heater off, the refrigerator settings we'll get to in a minute, are the items around the vehicle secure so we don't have a something falling, are the roof vents set to preference, and are the windows closed. And then I also have a memory board here for my different consumables on board. So the first 2 is just the leg of the trip, which I generally use as a day, and then how much money we've spent so far on a particular trip, and I usually only use those for larger trips. And then my freshwater and potable water levels. We generally don't drink out of the freshwater tank, so we'll bring potable water with us, and then we'll fill those containers up in the campground with the potable water sources there. We have 2 gray water tanks, we have the black water tank and the LPG tank. So I generally like to set these every morning or whatever, just reminding me of how we sit. We had a little trouble with our main breaker, and so we put in a master switch here. We want to try and get that moved back to the door. It's a bit more convenient there. The mirror, of course, just allows me to see what's going on in the back of the vehicle. If I can see something going on that concerns me or whatever, it's just Velcroed on, and it's a bit of a convex mirror, so it sees pretty well. This is a battery meter here I can set to determine what my batteries are doing, whether the current is flowing in or out, how much so, what's the state of the charge, and all the rest. It's a wonderful unit that works really well. Right now the backlight is set on. Generally speaking, it's off. And then finally this instrument here, which I may do a separate video on altogether. There's been a lot of discussion about going down the road in a RV with the LPG still on to keep the fridge cold. Some people suggest just turning the fridge off while you're driving, but in the United States, especially in the summer, and even in Ontario and here in Canada, it gets pretty warm, and especially if you sun on the side of the RV where the fridge is located, you can gain fairly substantial temperatures within a few hours. So, and of course, with the type of cooling system in those fridges, it's hard for them to pull it down. So I wasn't comfortable leaving it to just the insulation on the fridge. So what I decided to, at the same time I wasn't comfortable running the LPG while I was driving, I began to trust the wisdom of that, and at the same time, if there's tunnels and so forth, the LPG has to be off anyway. So what I did was first I got this switch, and so I have 3 options to run the fridge. I can run the fridge off of ground power, which is what GSC stands for. I can run it off the LPG, which you can do in the campground or whatever, and then I can also run it off auxiliary, which is my inverter. And so this is a 3 bus switch, so you are switching all lines at the same time, so there's no way that you can get any power that's going the wrong way. And so when it's a GSC, the power source for the refrigerator is the ground power, that could be the generator or the shore power, depending on how you've set things up. And then the auxiliary, of course, the generator is fed from the inverter. This refrigerator takes, it's an 8 cubic foot Dometic, and it takes about 310 watts of power when it's operating on the 120 volt. And so if you run it off of DC, the inverter, the display says it takes about 28 amps. Now, unfortunately, this inverter here seems to only be effective if the power is on. It doesn't seem to really want to drain the batteries very much. So I'm not sure just exactly how that works. The batteries seem, in this particular case, to seem lower than the values indicate. They seem to run down, so I'm not sure what the story is there. But regardless, so I have 2 relays, double pull, double throw relays in the storage area, which are engaged. So when you switch the panel here, the switch here will engage the coil of the appropriate relay. And then the relay, so it's a 12 volt coil on the relay and 120 volt on the contacts. And so this allows for it to choose which power supply to use. It's worked really well, so I've been very pleased how that worked. It's about 50 bucks worth of parts and maybe a day's worth of labor running cable. One of the biggest problems with these types of innovations is it's not so complicated to install. It's the running the cables so that they're reasonably hidden when you're doing it, so that you're not you know, it's all laying around. And of course that takes time. I should point out something else. We have, of course, the TV up here just above the display. You don't see it in the video just now, but it's there. And I wanted to be able to run DVD and so forth to it. But the cupboard, let's just adjust the camera here for a second so everybody can see what we're talking about. So this is overhead, very typical arrangement. And the video setup is in here. The problem is the cupboard really wasn't deep enough to establish a DVD connection. So what I decided to do instead is we bought an electric mock stove from Canadian Tire. It looks really nice, and it's situated right here when I'm in a campground. We put it over top of the drink rack here, like so, and it sits up about this high. And we can put the DVD player on top of it. And this stove, of course, gives a beautiful ambiance, but also puts out some heat too if you're plugged into the campground. So the DVD player goes on there, but then you'd have cables all over the place, so it really looked kind of low rent. So I installed this plug feature here. And what this does is we can plug the DVD player into those plugs along with, and then there's a cord, you can see just the white cord there, that allows me to plug the power in. And then underneath the panel and up this pillar on the left here, which you can't see anymore. Let's just turn that. So there we go. So then the video cables go up this pillar and then underneath here and in through this box and to the television. So it's pretty clear. The TV that we have here detaches and will come out of the wall to about 2 feet, so it makes it a bit closer because it's not that big. I'm going to say that it may be a 24-inch, maybe a touch less. But that's the size of the hole, so there's really not much you can do about that. But it does come out, so the simple effect of making it come out makes it probably more like a 30-inch effective view on the television. The only thing else I'm going to share on this side here is there's this unit underneath the TV right there. This is a radio thermometer that's connected to the refrigerator. Now, the last thing you want to do is sail down the road not thinking of anything, and 8 hours later the fridge hasn't been running the whole day, and you're in trouble. So this has a radio link to the refrigerator, and so I know what the temperature is inside the refrigerator as we're going down the road. So if something isn't working quite right, I also have my inverter behind the chair to the right of the video here. I can also look and see that its numbers are right to indicate that the fridge is properly powered. Just to finish the tour of the front area here, this is the navigator station. I added some additional 12 volt plugs there for a small spotlight, cell phone charger, and if my wife wants it, we have one of those seats that you can have heating and massage and all the rest of it. and it can be powered from there. There's also a very nice drawer thing. If I'll just move this back a touch here and show it to you. It's a front desk that comes out very nicely and has pens and paperwork and so forth. And of course she can also lay something on top of it, and if we're down the road she can eat or whatever while she's going. It's not strong enough to put your feet on or anything like that, but it sure is a very nice little unit and very convenient as you go down the road. The front drapes are on a track. They've been stained a bit over the years. I don't know if it's condensation or just what got to them. The window's a two-piece window, as you can see in the video here. So there's the seam still up the center, but it works pretty well. Of course, keeping it clean, as anyone can tell you with this, I did put some eaves on top of the window to try and keep the streaks off the window, and it does work sort of. But nevertheless, the bugs and so forth on the window, you really do, and you have to clean it pretty aggressively if you're going to do so. So anyhow, that's the story from the cockpit. Thank you very much.